What's up, brother and sisters? It's your brother G World 7_D. Here's the book Ancient and Modern Britons. This is volume 1 with David McRitchie, known as the Black Knight, the king. You see the crown in his head. But I'm going to go even further in this book. I'm going to read a few things. Alright? Read this chapter right here. Right here's chapter. Well, I'm not going to read the whole chapter, but I'm going to read certain excerpts from this chapter. Okay? Here it is. Before going on to consider the various consequences of regarding the Danish pirates as swarthy, you know what swarthy means, half Mongoloid people, it is advisable to discover, if possible, what traces they have left of the complexion in the topography and the language of this country, they and any other black race. It has been remarked, incidentally, by an American writer that the Indian Creek is a sort of John Smith in the nomenclature of western streams. And this, of course, is a result of the fact that for many years after a frontier district has been settled, though not thickly by white pioneers, scattered bands of the native tribes have lingered on, in a harmless gypsy fashion, besides their old riverside camps. And thus the name of the Indian Creek has been the most natural name that could be given to those streams beside which they lived. For I think it will be found that the localities are often named after the people who inhabit them, than from any other distinguishing association. There is no word better entitled to be called the John Smith of the nomenclature of British localities than the word black. Undoubtedly, there are cases where this adjective has been applied because it denotes some apparent and striking feature in the landscape, as for example, in the case of the gloomy black country, or where some craggy peak asserts itself distinctly as a black rock. But in most instances, no such explanation is satisfactory, and it is apparent that the real origin of the name dates from the days when certain portions of Scotland were distinctly recognized as black divisions, for the simple reason that they were peopled by black races, over whom, in the latter half of the 10th century, there ruled Kenneth MacMalcolm, known to his contemporaries as the Black. At the present time, certain districts in the southern states of America are called the Black regions for a similar reason. And since the waters of the Black Sea are not black, it is more than probable that the savage tribes whose presence upon its coast once made it known as the Axning, or the Inhospitable Sea, were also black. The Egyptians who dwelt by the Red Sea depict themselves as red, which the sea itself is not. And though it may be argued that the White Sea was so named on account of the snowy ice folds that covered its surface the greater part of the year, what is one to make of the more archaic Kara Sea? It may be left, however, to others to settle whether these seas and various European rivers and districts, of which latter the Black Forest is an example, originally received their title from the presence in the neighborhood of a black people, or from some striking natural features. There are plenty of names for our present purpose within the limits of the British Isles. All right, I'm going to go even further. All right, I'm going to go to page, this is Ancient Modern Britons. This is the first-hand source. All right, I want to go to page 216. All right. Thus, as Moors or Scots or Pits, the pure specimens of the dub glasses of Galloway were gypsies and falls, and a Douglas, or latterly a Black Douglas, was a generic term. This fact explains the confusion that has arisen concerning the Black Douglas. McTaggart of the Gallovidian Encyclopedia is dreadfully mixed with regard to the chiefs of this name, for he evidently supposes that only one of them was so designated. He errs in good company, as Sir Walter Scott seems also to regard the good Sir James as the Black Douglas, whereas we know that no fewer than 4 of the Douglases' earls bore that title, while their very clan name strictly considers signifies the black man. That a Black Douglas must at one time have been a term interchangeable with a black man or a gypsy is indicated also by the rhyme which Scott places in the mouth of the soldier's wife at Roxburgh Castle. Okay, I'm going even further. Therefore, for this reason also, a Black Douglas was only a synonym for a Moor. I repeat, therefore, for this reason also, a Black Douglas was only a synonym for a Moor. And when one or the other of the chiefs of this race was styled the Black Douglas, the article so prefixed was employed exactly as it is yet done in Ireland and in Scotland, to distinguish the head of the clan from the rest of his clansmen, all of whom bear the same tribal name. It has been hinted that the movement which ended in the final overthrow of the Black Douglas was a last effort of the Moorish races to recover their last sovereignty. And there doesn't seem some reason for believing that race hatred entered largely into the motives by which the participators in the struggle were accentuated. By this, as it may, there is no doubt that the first celebrated Black Douglas was on the side of the Norman Bruce. But at that time, a century and a half before the Black Douglas collapsed, all difference of race was sunk by everyone who really wished by further the newborn desire for united national life in Scotland. And the high-minded knight portrayed by Barbour would be the last to trade upon racial spite. After this independence has been actually gained, and the fever of patriotism had cooled, and when the noblest of their leaders had long been dead, it is conceivable that the attitude of the Black Douglases may have considerably altered, or, indeed, had the good Sir James been framed of baser materials, like his unworthy descendants, he might have placed himself at the head of anti-Norman party in Scotland, a large portion of which consisted of the Picts of Galloway, who were, of course, Black Douglases. Many of the people of Galloway were unfriendly to Bruce. They lived under the government of one MacDougall, related to the Lord of Lorne, who had defeated Robert Bruce at Darray, and very nearly killed or made him prisoner. These Galloway men had heard that Bruce was in their country, with no more than 60 men with him, so they resolved to attack him by surprise. And for this purpose they got 200 men together, and brought with them 2 or 3 bloodhounds. Now, these Galloway men were, as stated, Picts. For the Picts of Galloway were particularly known as Galloway men or Galwegian. As Galwegian or Picts, they had led the van of King David's army at the Battle of the Standard, nearly 2 centuries prior to Bruce's day. Therefore, it is not to be wondered that their leader was styled MacDouglas, since that name signifies the son of the black stranger. And if divisions of them were at that time or subsequently styled Douglases or MacDougals, the names were the natural outcomes of their descent from the black strangers. Whether Mr. Skene appears to indicate they were the posterity of early Picts, or whether, as Scott hints, they were related to the MacDougals of Lorne. They were literally Douglases, as Picts, as Scots, or as Black Danes. They were, in the eyes of men of the race of Gildas, black foreigners, or Dub Gauls, the offspring of what originally were transmarine nations. The chances are that such color names were used in a very shifty fashion, even at so recent a period as the days of Bruce, and many of these Galwegians will be indifferently called Douglases, Mac Douglases, or one or other of 100 various names that set some peculiarity of complexion, or of a figure, or that denoted the occupation of the individual. Wow. You know, I just read you, they talking about basically the black people who was in Europe at that time. This is volume 1 of section of, of Ancient and Modern Britain by David McRitchie. It was written back in the 1800s, I believe in 1884, 1885. This is the first-hand source. What I just read is talking about the various different black people who occupy what we now know as Europe, the British Isles, over into France, all through Europe was richly populated by Negroes. Now ask yourself, where did those Negroes go? Not all of them. Some of them were amalgamated into the white Germanic tribes, even though the original Germans themselves were black. But so-called Germans were black. But a lot of them went into Africa, a lot of them went to Asia, and then a bunch of them came here to the Americas. Now I don't know how much information I can prove to some of you Negroes, man, who just want to believe that you're just slaves from Africa and believe that every single black person is just African. That is ignorant, man. I've said this over and over again in all of my posts. We've sailed the seas, but some of us cannot fathom the greatness of our ancestors, what we have done around the world globally. This is the ignorance of many of our people, man. This stuff got to stop, man. We got to stop. That's why I don't fool with Pan-Africanism, because it's so like a retardation of our minds into our people, man. We don't need to get into that foolishness. I am so tired of Pan-Africanism, man, because it's garbage. It's too busy centralizing black people in one location instead of not understanding our history is global. We traveled, we sailed, we traded. We had an ancient form of commerce in the ancient world. We had our ancient currency in the ancient world. Why does these damn Negroes don't get this, man? This is what I don't understand. It's really sickening and it's sad. It's sad, man. It's so much in this book. This is the first-hand source by David McRitchie. This is the volume 1, all right? This is volume 1 of Ancient and Modern Britain. So I want to say that, man. I want to post this video because you in order to fully understand real so-called black history, you need to understand that, number one, we weren't just in Africa. Though that mess saying that we were just in Africa done by white writers trying to explain away the greatness of the black civilizations outside of Africa, particularly black civilizations in Asia and here, definitely here in America, all through the Americas. We built great empires around the globe. Any fool that's still teaching and say that most of us come from West Africa is an idiot and don't know what the hell they're talking about. Any fool still teaching that most of us came over via ships from the slave trade is an idiot who don't know what the hell they're talking about. There's too much documentation. There's too much information out there that talks about black people already over here. I mentioned before how you see images of brothers and sisters smoking tobacco, long tobacco pipes, along with tobacco leaf skirts and tobacco crowns on their head. That is natural to the Americas. That's not Africa. That right there would tell you something right there. But anyone try to say, oh, they're just African is an idiot. But unfortunately, we have too many idiots roaming our community, like an Umar Johnson, like a Sarah Sudin, like the Amon-Ra Squad, like Angel Mears Jordan, like that Juicy chick, that New Possibilities. These are some coons, man. They're idiots, and they have not done no real research. And unfortunately, man, they have a nice listening audience with a bunch of idiots, man, who listen to that idiot, and they're being misinformed. Don't listen to these idiots. I keep telling you, brothers and sisters, do your research because information is there. The information is there. You have the information. It's right under your nose. It's there. I have done years of this, man. And it makes me sick that I still hear my people claiming that they're just descendants of slaves when there's so much documentation, evidence about the black empires here in America. A wealth of evidence. But yet, you got niggas who just want to dismiss it and just say those are the Africans who came over here. And that the bulk of them came over here on a cargo ship, on a slave ship. That is ignorance, man. Don't believe people like that. Don't listen to people like that, man. This is your brother G World, out.